How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. It's been quite a while since I've released an episode of the show for you guys, so I'm really excited to come at you with the very first episode of 2024. I've got a lot of cool stuff planned for this year, and I hope that you guys enjoy it as much as I am enjoying making it. I hope you're enjoying it just as much listening to it, if not even more listening to it than I enjoy making it. Today we've got a really fun episode for you guys. It's a little bit of a hybrid episode between two shows that we've done years and years ago, our random horror thoughts and horror rapid fire. This episode is a little bit of a fusion dance between those two episode concepts, and it was a ton of fun to record, and as I said, I hope it's a ton of fun for you guys to listen to as well. It was a good chance to kind of, dust off the old vocal cords and do an episode because it had been such a long time before I've done an episode for you guys. But this year I'm going to be coming out with a lot more content, and as I said, looking very, very forward to doing so. So without further ado, we're just going to get right to the show. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, you need to make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You need to make sure you're subscribing to my podcast over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever the hell you're listening to this podcast. You need to make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, leaving me a rating and a review, because it helps out the show so much, and I appreciate all the love you guys have been giving to me all through the years, and I hope 2024 is another year where you guys can spread the good word about Buddy's House of Horror podcast. So with that, we're just going to go right to the show, so now let's get spooky. Alright, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. Midnight Miles is on the show, cracking one open early. What do we got there? What's the...
It's Deep Fake. It's a drink for the year 2024. It's a non-alcoholic IPA from Flying Dog.
It's got like Groucho Marx on it or something? It's a legend right there. Well, he's just got the glasses and stuff.
Yeah.
How's it going, Kat? It's been a fat minute since we've done one of these. How's everything been going for you?
Has it been like...
It's been since October, something like that, yeah.
Wow. It's okay. It's it's hard, Midnight Mocha, another somewhat regular guest, like in the background snoring somewhere on the show. He's not here today, but he's struggling some days now. So we're just taking it day by day. I am on vacation currently. I really shouldn't complain. It's just a constant, stress and anxiety of trying to survive in the modern era. But otherwise, I mean, hey, I'm here. We're here.
I feel it, man. Yeah, definitely rough few weeks, rough few months for all of us. I have a question for you, just to start things off the bat, Get things going.
All right.
So we were supposed to all hang out on Saturday night. There were some things that happened. We won't get into all the details, but we did not end up hanging out with everyone the night. We were talking on the phone, and you were, I don't want to say you were down in the dumps about it, but you were like, you know what, man, I'm going to go do my laundry. I'm going to go cook myself some dinner. I'm going to hang out. It's just going to be a normal night. But you said, you're like, all right, I'll probably go shopping, buy myself something to eat, make something, cook something up real nice. And I told you, I was like, Miles, man, we've had a day. You need to get yourself a delicious treat. And I need to know, what did you treat yourself to on Saturday night?
Before I did everything that you just mentioned, I went and got a turmeric latte.
Hard.
So, I got some stuff for my overall well-being that, like we just spoke about, I very fucking need, I feel like, anymore. But I did, and I said, I almost messaged you guys that night, but I feel like you guys had a lot going on. I was going to be like, buddy, I got myself that fucking treat, bro. I got the treat. Luckily, the caffeine didn't give me a fucking heart attack mid-Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
But, I did have a couple, maybe I double treated. I did have a couple chocolate-covered almonds, which I don't normally have. I got a little bit of those. So, I mean, maybe I double treated myself, I guess. So, I guess it wasn't too bad.
He was living it up on a Saturday night.
That's how I party now, man. Chocolate-covered almonds and a turmeric latte. Fuck yeah, I'm getting weird with the boys.
Yeah. Basically, we don't really have a format for this segment that we do. But a couple years back, we did an episode, I believe it was just called Random Horror Thoughts or something like that.
Is this Random Horror Thoughts 3?
I think this is only 2.
Is this 2?
I think this is the second coming of Random Horror Thoughts. Because I don't think we ever followed it up. We've always talked about following it up.
2023. I'm like gaslighting myself. I'm like, didn't we have a Random Horror Thoughts? Maybe we didn't.
I don't think we did, because I think we just had the one originally. But we've talked about doing it, for 2 years, and what the hell? We decided today's going to be the day. We're just going to pull the Band-Aid off and do it. So, we don't really have much of a format for it. But I guess we'll kind of go back and forth like we did. We'll do like 3 to 5 each, I guess.
Random questions or thoughts. Buddy has no idea what I'm going to ask. I have no idea what he's going to ask, which means you're going to get some half-assed and weird-ass answers. But I mean, if you've listened to this podcast in the past, you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
It's a good time. Excuse me as I dropped on the podcast. Oh, excuse me. It's a good time for us, though. I have a good time doing this.
Yeah, it can be questions. It can be just statements we put out into the world. It can be a little bit of a discussion. It could be a hot take. It could be something like that.
We love the hot takes here. We like them sizzling takes on Buddy's House of Horror.
What? I was going to say, if you wanted to start us off with a thought or a question or a hot take or just something to get us going.
All right. What's the worst horror remake of the 2000s?
Of the 2000s?
Yeah.
Out of the ones I've seen, which I have not seen all of them, but damn, that fucking Nightmare remake is not too hot.
No.
It's not one of my favorites.
It's not on your list, huh? There is an iconic scene in that, though, where he reaches around the rail and he's like, the dog's dead, and he's like, I was only trying to pet him. Like that, and just like it zooms in on his face. I will always remember that moment, seeing it in theaters. The whole fucking theater fucking busted up because it was like a sold out midnight. Back when they still did midnight showings, they didn't have the fucking 7:05s on a Thursday. But I've watched it a couple times over the years. It's pretty uninspired. I think like initially, because I was the right age, and I mean that's what was coming out in theaters at the time, so I was excited, and I actually really liked Jackie Earle Haley as an actor. I thought, oh, this is a cool take on it, but it just, God, it was drab. It initial watch. I remember I watched actually with Jared and a couple other people. We all went to the theater. We were like, hey, it wasn't too bad. You know, like no one was like blown away, but whatever.
Right.
But I think I've seen it, twice since, and each time I watch it, it gets worse. But I guess I'm going to answer. The format, too, we're going to answer our own questions, you know, so you get a little bit of both, right?
Sure.
We usually do that, right? I really dislike a few of the J-horror remakes because they're such bad cash grabs. Like the One Missed Call remake. Infamously, I always say the I remake with Jessica Alba is one of my least favorite films ever created. That's a straight up half star on Letterboxd. I do want to go back and rewatch that sometime to see if maybe I was just for some reason having a really fucking bad day.
I've got it on DVD upstairs. I got it as a Christmas gift one year from one of my friends in high school, and they were like, yeah, guys like Jessica Alba, so here you go. I was like, okay.
To be fair, I like her in both Sin Cities, and that's really, I can't really think of any other thing that I like Jessica. I'm not really like a Jessica Alba fan. I mean, she's attractive enough, but it's not my deal, you know. Any other horror remakes you don't like from that era or around the thing? Anything?
I mean, again, I haven't seen all of them. I vaguely remember the One Missed Call remake. That was one of my brother's favorite films at the time for some reason.
So random.
So we would watch that a lot. All I remember is like at the end when the guy comes out and it's like literally no one you've seen before or whatever. It's just like some guy.
Right.
I actually really liked the remake of it was Tale of Two Sisters, but it's The Uninvited.
Oh yeah.
I actually really liked that one.
That one's not too bad.
Back when I saw that in theaters.
Same.
But probably the worst. I mean, I just can't get over that Nightmare remake. So That's still my pick for the worst one out of the bunch. But again, I have not seen all of them.
If you go back and listen to the Nightmare on Elm Street ranking, which I think you should do if you haven't, that was both of our bottom. That
was
pick,
the
right?
bottom.
There's the spoiler, guys. You can skip the first couple minutes because we don't like it's definitely on the bottom, the most bottom tier. All right, shoot. What do you got for me?
Random horror thought, horror hot take, horror questions. Does it have to be a question, or is it just something we're thinking about?
Whatever. However, whatever you want to format to me, throw it on me.
Okay, so I'll do something a little horror adjacent. How's this?
Okay.
So, we'll bring it into the world of music just for a minute, because we don't talk about music enough on the show.
That's true.
So this might be a hot take. I might lose a few listeners off of this, but I have a feeling you're going to agree with me on this one, because I'm a fan of horror imagery, horror influence within music. Like bands like Misfits, Typo Negative, stuff like that. Like, I'm all about it. Ice Nine Kills is fucking cringe.
Yeah, they're pretty bad. It's not a... I saw part of them when they opened for Metallica in Pittsburgh in 2022. Yeah, it's not for me, man.
Like, I can understand the appeal for some.
Yeah.
But, like, taking a band like, I don't know, like Misfits, or like even in modern day, like something like Sleep Token, something like that, where it's taking sort of the elements of horror and it has like this horror aesthetic, and it's not just, oh, we're going to write a song about American Psycho and call it Hip to Be Scared. Like, you know what I like, stuff like like some, it's just like, I get, like, if people like it, like, that's fine, like, everyone likes their own shit, but for me it's just kind of like, I don't know, that's not that's not what I'm looking for when I'm listening.
It's something about too, like, their like imagery, and like someone shared one of the music videos they had or sent it to me. I don't know why. It was probably in a reel format on Instagram, and I was just like it just looks, everything about it screams like, this is my first, like a 13-year-old discovers like their first band that's maybe just like very popular but hair outside the mainstream, and it's like Ice Nine Kills.
Yeah,
it's like a gateway band for them. See,
because I had forgotten about them for over a decade.
Yeah,
because they didn't start out that way.
No,
because I remember seeing them at Warped Tour in like 2009 or something. Like, they were like unknown kind of band. Like, they were one of the ones like walking around trying to sell like demos and stuff.
Right.
Forgot they totally existed, and then I want to say like 2016, 17, they were just kind of like everywhere, and I was like, oh, I forgot this band was even a thing.
I know a lot of adult women that really like that band. Like, when I say a lot, I know a few. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna say I know like 20 women that like Ice Nine Kills, but the few that I do know, they really fucking like them. So
it's definitely one of the bands where like you're not just like, oh yeah, they're all right. Like, if you're in, you're like all in on it.
Yeah, I was surprised that Metallica picked them, but Metallica was trying to pick big local openers. So like, Ice Nine Kills is from Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So,
I mean, like, you know, whatever. I mean, they're a fairly popular band. So, but that was a weird bill. Metallica, Greta Van Fleet, and Ice Nine Kills. It's like all over the fucking place. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, if you lose listeners because of that, then they need to get a little bit more thick skin, brother. Because I mean, that band is, I don't know. Sorry, every single person out there if you like them, but it's not doing it for me. You know.
Yeah, that's why these are hot takes, I guess.
Hot takes. Should I throw out a hot take?
It doesn't need to be a hot take. It
All
could be a philosophical conundrum you've been thinking about.
I'll say a hot take. Where the fuck is my? I guess I could segue into this too, but you know, you had your top 10 horror podcast or whatever, which I was gonna ask you if you update if there's anything on there that. Because you did it kind of like in October, and that was before
Thanksgiving. I did it kind of in October
and all that stuff. Like,
I heard it was a topic of discussion between you and Jared at one of your hangouts that you were complaining about my list.
I was surprised that you had. I wasn't surprised that your number one being Skinamarink, and I understand why. And I like Skinamarink a lot. I need to watch it. I think maybe like again. I'm like in between everyone. Like everyone either loves or hates it. I'm kind of in between. I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. And the experience was good because I saw it in a very small indie theater in the front row. I think that it felt almost like a home personal experience. Like you could hear a pin drop in the theater. I couldn't imagine watching it any other way. I actually watched half of it with some people at my buddy Gil's house who actually has a home theater, and it just was not the right vibe because it was too relaxed. It sounds bad to say that, but it was just like I was trying to focus on it. They were kind of, you know...
Yeah, because, like, any little thing can take you out of it. Because it's one you kind of got to be, like, locked into. So, like, if people are talking or whatever and stuff like that, like, I get it.
So, I put together... Because I thought maybe at one point we'd be doing a podcast. So, I put together my top 10 horror and a couple honorable mentions.
Of last year?
Yes. So, this is kind of a hot take. Now, this isn't my top 10 films of the year. Actually, I think it was a great year for stuff I was interested in that was non-horror. Like, I was really into stuff like Asteroid City, Past Lives. That was actually my favorite film last year.
Past Lives was my top film of last year.
Yeah, wasn't it incredible? Like, it
was number, like, that was the best film I saw last year. Past Lives, spoiler.
Yeah, it was
for everybody.
It was perfect. I mean, that film, like, I was just like, this, just every single scene was just like perfection.
I was broken by the end of it. I'll tell you that right now.
So, my number 10, and this is the hot take, was Exorcist Believer.
It's definitely a hot take to have it in your top 10.
It's a hot take. You know, here's the thing. I like the first hour of that film a lot. And then it gets all David Gordon fucking Green and Danny McBride.
That's your boys, though.
I like them, but... Now he's been taken off. I mean, this is kind of like new news coming into 2024, but he's been taken off of both. His schedule's full with 2 other projects, so they're not using the words fired. I don't know if maybe he was like, you know what, I can't take literally a third film of mine being fucking just critiqued to death. Maybe I'll just, back out, but he's off the other 2. He's off.
I did not know that.
Oh, did you not know that? Yeah, he left the, and like the next one, Deceiver, already has a 2025 release date.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
interesting.
I don't know. Who knows? But the problem with all of his, even his Halloweens, which I know we've talked about in past podcasts, is I think Exorcist Believer had 4 writers. Excuse me. You can tell.
That's a lot.
That's his biggest thing. Like, there'll be like a consistent narrative for half the film, and then all of a sudden it's like somebody's like, we got to press the wonky button and things got to go all upside fucking down.
Right.
And it doesn't feel...
It doesn't feel like an Exorcist film. It just feels like an exorcism film.
Yes. The first hour, because I watched The Exorcist, the original, the night before in theaters on a Wednesday, and then went and watched Believer the following night. First hour and like the whole setup where they're like, the main dad, is like with his wife on their, I don't think it's their honeymoon, but some sort of getaway, and they have like all these things. Like, I thought the setup was great, and then as soon as it gets in, and Ellen Burstyn's character, I don't know why I'm having it's just one of my favorite films. I can't think of a fucking name right now. Reagan's mom. What is her fucking name off the top
I can't think of her name.
McNeil is her last name. Is it Ellen McNeil in the film?
I don't know,
bro. Sorry, guys. We're losing viewers right now.
Reagan's mother comes back.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just gets all fucking wacky. And then they can't stick to one fucking narrative. But, like, there's still scenes and imagery that I like in it a lot. And when I put it up to other horror films of the year, like, still, somehow it made number 10. I think it's because I also enjoy the universe. Same thing with the Halloweens. Like, I'm pretty forgiving more than most people, where I just find myself enjoying being back in the universe.
Yeah.
Opposite of... Did you have Saw 10 in your top 10?
So at the time of that recording, Saw was in my top 10 of the year. It has since fallen way out of that.
Okay, all right, good. Because
I've been meaning to do, and this is a spoiler of something I might still do, but I saw 50 new releases in 2023. Not horror, but just 50 new releases.
Right.
So I wanted to do like a top 50 like of the year. I don't know if I'm still gonna do that, but my list is on Letterboxd, so you can just go look at my Letterboxd list.
Good.
But it has since fallen way out of not only top 10 of the year, but top 10 horror of the year. It's far below that now.
So you have them all ranked in the top 50 on your Letterboxd of the year?
So I have a list on my Letterboxd of every new release I saw in 2023, and I have ranked them 1 through 50.
What a fucking professional we have here on Buddy's House of Horror. I think I might have saw.
Well, the thing was
70 new releases.
that's how I was doing it from the beginning. So like when 2023 started, I made a new list, and every time I watched something, I would either put it like above the previous one or below or whatever.
That's smart,
so like,
yeah.
It wasn't like I had to remember all 50. It was like I was doing it as I was watching them.
This is why he has a fucking podcast, and I just come on once in a while, guys. No, it makes sense. I mean, thankfully with Letterboxd and me, it's like I just filter in like 2023, you know, and like. But the problem is, if it was in one fucking podunk festival in the middle of nowhere, they're gonna say came out the year before.
Yeah, that's the only problem. So you kind of have to like know what actually came out theatrically, like wide release that year, because like a lot of the stuff in my list, technically it says like 2022 because it hit like one festival or something,
Yeah.
but I don't count that shit. If it came out in 2023, it came out in 2023.
If you Google most of that stuff, most of the time it will say U.S. release date, and it's always what the theatrical or what you know, whatever it actually is. I'm just gonna, I'm just taking over the segment midway through. I'm just gonna blast through my top 10.
Blast
quickly.
through the top 10. Quick
But,
blast.
My honorable mentions were Renfield, which I know you loved.
Yeah.
I know one that you didn't love. I actually really liked The Boogeyman, the Stephen King based. It felt like a 2000s horror film. Like I kind of I like the aesthetic. I really like She Came from the Woods, which I guess is on Tubi now. I really recommend that. It's kind of like an old school, like cursed, kind of like it's like Evil Dead-esque, but it just is about like a cursed campground. So it kind of mixes like a camp killer or like camp film with the Evil Dead.
Yeah.
I recommend. I saw that. Regal had it in theaters. I went on a whim. No trailer, no anything. I went on like a Friday after work and had an awesome time. Fucking good gore, good effects, actual pretty good story, actually funny too, like not forced funny, but like that was really good. And then also the anthology films, my last honorable mention, Satanic Hispanics. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
I recommend, especially the last segment. The start, it's up, it's real close with Exorcist Believer. I know it's not saying much, guys. Really check out Satanic Hispanics. I'm just saying, but the first segment and like let's say the in between like segment, the kind of like main segment that ties everything together. First 10-15 minutes is a little rough. Like I was kind of watching this, I was like, ugh. But then like as it goes on, it's just full steam ahead and just great from maybe like 3/4 of it was great. But top 10, Exorcist Believer. I don't care if you don't like it. Fuck you guys. It's a Wonderful Knife is number 9. Did you?
I saw it. Yeah, I liked it.
I really liked that.
I did a double feature of It's a Wonderful Knife and Thanksgiving in the same day.
That's hard.
And it was basically like watching the same movie for 3 hours because a lot of it was so similar.
Right. Good holiday. You know what? 2023, the comeback of holiday-based films.
Yes.
2023 brought it back. Number 8, When Evil Lurks. Love that. You saw it, right?
It was good. Yeah, it was good. I think it just barely missed my top 10 horror of the year. I think it just barely missed, but I liked it quite a bit.
It felt familiar and original at the same time, but also a lot of like the narrative aspects felt like I was actually surprised in parts of the film, like multiple times. Like I didn't expect it to do certain things. I was really refreshed. Now it has kind of the more, obviously it's a foreign film. A lot of foreign films, some of the narrative parts make no sense, but in a way that works. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Based on seeing it. This is the one that I swore came out in 2023. People kept telling me it didn't, and then I fucking looked, and it came out in January, like 13th, 2023. And after I did this list, the next day, Dread Central put out their top 10 of 2023, and they had it on that list.
Oh, really?
And people combated them, and I was like, see, I told you. Sick. I loved Sick. Came out on Peacock mid-January 2023. You saw that, right?
I have not seen Sick.
It's great. Kevin Williamson of Scream wrote it.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, it blew me. I didn't expect much. I figured to be entertained, but that is like a brutal, scary film. I tried to get some other people to watch it. I think Gil ended up watching it and like actually like, wow, that was a lot. It was great. So if you get an hour and a half, watch.
Yeah, I've heard it's good. For some reason,
good.
I just didn't watch it. When Evil Lurk was my number 15 of the year, by the way.
For horror or
just in general.
Oh wow,
in
that's
general,
high. Yeah. It's probably around the same spot for me actually if I add in everything else. Number 6 was God is a Bullet, which I talked about that in one of the podcasts we had earlier this year. That one that's kind of like a pulpy, like cult noir, like you know. Infinity Pool, your favorite, number 5. I know you didn't.
My favorite film of all time. Yeah.
Thank God Mia Goth's naked in that. Whew, man. All right, I gotta not think about that. Scream 6 was number 4. Really like Scream 6. I mean, the series has crashed and burned within the past 8 months since, but Thanksgiving was number 3 for me. I loved it.
That's pretty high, yeah.
And then this is the one that I saw everyone putting it as horror, so I was like, okay, I'll do it. Godzilla -1 was number 2 for horror.
If we're counting that as horror, that was my number 2 horror of the year as well.
Okay. And I think you already know my number 1 is It Was Talk to Me. I absolutely adore
I did not
film.
know that was your number 1.
And that's in my probably top. That might be number 4, number 5 the whole year. I really loved it. I really just connected with it, and I think that's like basically what anyone watches. Anything that's in my top, whatever, it's like I felt some sort of connection to the characters and connection to this, like horror tangent. We're in horror thoughts, but like I feel like nowadays when I talk to people, and I know you and I have talked about this, and I think I was thinking about this a while back and wanted to ask you, but it's not really. This isn't really a question, but I feel like people are so hypercritical sometimes of like modern stuff, where it's like if you watch something that's like 80s, 70s, 90s, you're a little bit more forgiving because there's a layer of nostalgia over it. Right. But I am perfectly okay with people not liking any modern things. Instead of just being like, I don't really like modern horror, I watch it because it's something to do. Like, I'm not saying me, I'm saying if someone just straight up said that,
right?
Like, at least I would understand. But me as a fan of horror throughout the decades from Universal Monsters. I mean, even before that, a couple of the silent films until present, I always find at least maybe 2 to 3 minimum, like ones each year that come out that I'm like, oh damn, that's going to be like, I'm not saying it's going to be in my top 20, but like in my top 50 or 100 horror, maybe in my top 50, top 100 horror films. Cause I just find stuff that connects with me and with the times. You know what I mean? I feel like for me, Talk to Me worked for the times because it really felt like a film that captured like what the youth looks like and what the youth might be into now and some of the stuff. It just felt organic, which I think I've talked about maybe one of the other podcasts. I don't know, but also, I mean, there's like the big scene kind of in the middle and they're playing with the hand and just like how violent and unrelenting it was. Yeah. Both that and When Evil Lurks kind of shocked me in theaters because you see, especially you used to, the 2010s, had so many great like direct DVD, like foreign films, especially with like Magnet and Dimension Extreme and a lot of these labels, which we've talked about, I think, on other podcasts too. But like, I feel like you see a lot of like stylized horror or like maybe a couple quick gory moments, but they pull away with like modern horror. Unless obviously it's like Terrifier, and I mean that's a little different. But the way that When Evil Lurks was shot, and then like the scene that I'm talking about in Talk to Me, which anyone who's seen the film knows what the fuck I'm talking about without saying it. I'm not gonna spoil it for anyone, but they just wouldn't pull away. They just made you watch everything, and I think it just like made it even more heart-wrenching for me and stuff like that. But do you feel, and I know that I look at your Letterboxd scores, we both do on everyone's, we like to poke fun a little bit, but do you feel that you like modern horror? That's a horror thought. Do you feel, honestly,
so you kind of stole my next thing a little bit, because this was going to be my thought to you.
Okay.
This was going to be my take on it. So it's a big thing, especially when we were in high school and all this stuff. People would say that modern horror sucks. That would just be a normal thing people would say. Like, they don't make them like they used to. Like, this is around the time One Missed Call's coming out and stuff like that.
Hey, I can believe it back then. But anyways.
I think horror is doing a lot better now than a lot of other genres.
I agree.
When was the last time you saw a good romantic comedy? Or a good comedy? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously there's a lot of crap that's coming out now with horror. Like, go on Shudder and, like, just find any low-budget film you want, rip it apart, like, whatever. But, as a whole, I think horror is aging a lot better than a lot of other genres, and it's getting produced at a higher quality than a lot of other genres, like, as a whole.
I agree.
Obviously, when you have stuff like Night Swim coming out this month, I mean, it's hard to defend that. But
did you end up seeing that?
I did not see it, but I literally,
yeah.
when everyone on your Letterboxd gives it a half a star, basically, I'm just like, okay,
I
think that's one I can skip.
I was generous. I gave it 2.5 out of 5, but quick Night Swim thought. They wrote a family that I actually didn't hate any one of the members. I actually liked every family member, and it felt wholesome and real. And that literally was why I gave it probably a whole extra star. But I feel like, again, it's not a horror film. That film is literally like almost like it could be a Twilight Zone episode a week.
Right,
it's like a modern thing. Like, it's really honestly just a creepy what if sci-fi thriller. I mean, not really sci-fi, but kind of. You can kind of, not really, sci-fi is not the word I'm looking for. But kind of, you can kind of throw in sci-fi and horror can blur lines, I feel like.
Yeah, all the time.
Sci-fi is not really maybe the right word, but I think maybe you know what I'm getting at. It feels like it would have been a fine 1 hour episode of something.
The new Twilight Zone series or whatever that they were doing, or a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah, that would have been great. And they had Kurt Russell's son as the lead, and he was in that one Black Mirror episode with like the jurors.
I've seen a few episodes here and there, but I haven't seen a lot of them.
I think that sold it, but yeah, it's one of those ones where I was like, you know what? I gave it a 2.5 star because it was competently made. I like the family, but I wouldn't call it a horror film.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. Maybe I am forgiving. I have a hard time giving something that at least was okay, like a 0.5 star or 1 star. You know, I have to give something that's literally like dog shit production, dog shit, where it's just like, you're like, I can't believe when people give something like that a 0.5 star, I'm like, oh, come here. I'll show you some stuff. I'll show you what a 0.5 star looks like. Let's put on a couple things, and people will be like literally gouging their fucking eyeballs out or run out of the fucking building. But anyways, continue. You were on a thought process.
I mean, that's really the only thing about it. Like, I feel horror's in a lot better place than a lot of other genres, and I guess kind of to like encapsulate that thought, like, horror fans are basically, like, we're the most, I'm trying to think of like a way to word it, but basically we're more accepting of like older films, as opposed to a lot of people. Like, say for example, is like, oh, I'm really into comedies. I love Kevin Hart and movies with The Rock or whatever. And it's piggybacking off your beer. Like, if you ask them, oh, what's your favorite like Groucho Marx movie? They're like, I haven't fucking seen that shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've seen shit all the way from the 20s. You know, like, I mean, like, I don't know. It's just very, very different. Horror is a great place to be, and it's a great place to, you know, watch a bunch of old shit too and have modern stuff. So
I feel like horror too. It's like, look at something like Renfield, you know, which you've talked about, we've talked about. That's basically a fucking comedy.
Yeah,
but it has all the horror thematic elements that I want. So it's like, I'd rather just watch. Like, I love when horror gets infused with other things, because I especially think horror and comedy go very well together.
Yeah.
Usually if you get a good horror comedy, it knocks it out of the fucking park. Like, it's like, example.
Like a good one.
Yeah, good one. Yeah.
Good
like Shaun, I mean, I don't know if you're a Shaun of the Dead fan.
Shaun of the Dead's great.
Shaun of the Dead's fucking great. You know, I guess American Werewolf in London's a horror comedy, even though it's a little more, it's very early horror comedy, but one of my favorite films ever. There's a modern one coming up. We keep talking about the year that we're in now, but Lisa Frankenstein, the
comes
Diablo
out next
Cody,
month.
Diablo Cody made. I'm hoping that's great. The trailer, what do you think? Trailers look pretty
Trailer
good.
looks good. I mean, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
but yeah, I don't know. So So technically now, is it your turn or is it my turn to ask?
I think it's so we'll say your first one was worst remakes. I said Ice Nine Kills is cringe.
Well, I agreed.
Exorcist Believer in your top 10.
Then I kind of we segued into the top 10, but then I was like, do you like kind of asking what do you think about modern horror thing? But you kind of were going for that too, so I don't know.
So you can take the modern horror thing. I'll take the thing that we're much more accepting of other decades of horror.
Okay.
Because you can get some drama fans that'll be like, oh yeah, I love fucking Maltese Falcon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's like very few and far between. Like, I don't know, I could tell you like 10 films from the 50s that I like. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a lot different for horror fans. So I don't know. What do you think about that? I don't know.
I agree. I feel like horror fans do try to, like, you know, branch out and always go back and kind of like hunt and search. I'm gonna call out Jared one more time on this fucking podcast because they were talking about streaming platforms in one of our group chats the other day, and him and a couple other people were defending Netflix's horror selection. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that and gone beyond maybe the first, I don't fucking know, 3-4 slides, whatever, however that they keep changing the format of the app. I don't personally use Netflix, but the last time that I was on there, it was fucking awful. It was like 100 horror films. There was about maybe 20 to 30 that I've either seen that are good or interesting. I've seen more than that on there, but they weren't good. And then it's literally the most bottom of the barrel. They paid $5,000 for the rights and threw on there, and like every Bollywood horror film and everything. And that's fine. There's a demographic for that, but don't be defending that there's old horror films on there, because Netflix has this thing like, look, we put 5 old horror films on here and 3 of those are from the 90s. They're so old. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just like, no, the selection is not good. What do you think on that?
Is this your topic, the Netflix thing?
Fuck it, sure, yeah.
So Netflix horror selection sucks. Is that your hot take?
Is that hot? I don't think it's a hot. It's just a thought, you know. I mean, it's just a.
I will have to agree with you. I cannot remember the last time I watched a horror film on Netflix.
No, I mean...
And I guess just the larger thing with streaming in general. Like, it's getting hard to, like, find shit on streaming that, like, you want to see. Unless it's, like, something that comes out on Shudder, like a new release. Like, it's getting, like, harder and harder to find shit that you actually want to watch before going on to Amazon Prime and renting it for like $3 or like $3 on YouTube or whatever. Yeah. Like, it's hard to find the stuff you actually want to watch for free now. And yeah, like, I can't remember the last time I watched something on Netflix. A lot of it is like your Bollywood stuff and your foreign films. And I do watch some of those, but like, there's just like where do you even begin? And a lot of it does look like sort of like the bottom of the barrel stuff.
Yeah.
Because like Where Evil Lurks is a great foreign film, but it's on Shudder. Yeah. Like, a lot of the stuff that Netflix gets just, like, isn't to that quality, I guess. And HBO Max, too. Like, HBO Max gets a lot of, like, bottom-of-the-barrel kind of stuff.
Yeah. Their horror selection, though, at least when they say they actually have...
a horror section.
and older films. Like, actually films that you want to watch, though. I mean,
well, because they've got all the Criterion stuff on there, too.
Yeah.
HBO does.
But they've also got, like, if they've paid the rights, like, they got the rights, I think, this last October for, like, Nightmare on Elm Street. They finally put on there, and, like, some other stuff they bought some rights to. So they finally, like, started to pad some stuff, you know.
Peacock goes insane in October, but then that's it.
Like, I was defending Peacock on the thing, and everyone fucking hates the interface, hates all that. I don't really care about stuff like that. Like, I don't actually use what 5 brain cells I have left to, like, worry about app interfaces. Like, but Peacock, though, throughout the year, like, Peacock in October will put the collections together, like the Child's Play collection, Universal Monsters. So they will give that, like, they give it like a bigger platform, and they give it like a front page almost thing to see. But throughout the year, Peacock keeps a lot of stuff on there, like Night of the Demons. I know they got some. I mean, I know it's to each their own, but a bunch of Full Moon stuff they pay for the rights for. I mean, a ton of Universal, like, regular horror films, like stuff like, let's say, like Dead Silence or stuff like that. I mean, they try to keep a
it like has
collection.
The advantage because obviously Peacock is through NBC, which owns Universal. Like, something like Netflix, like, it doesn't really have like the backing of a studio. You know what I mean?
No.
So like it's just like a different beast. But
Fine, that can be my hot thing. But again, you agree. We're pretty much so far pretty in agreement on this. Maybe besides the Exorcist Believer thing, but
I'll do mine as a question, but it's kind of like a thought and then a question within the thought.
okay.
Because we've been talking about horror remakes with some of these. They need to start remaking stuff that's not good already. That's my thought into the universe.
I agree.
Obviously we have these requels, soft reboots with Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, stuff like that.
Right.
But they gotta start remaking stuff that wasn't great to begin with. Because that's what we want to do with a remake. We want to make it whether the special effects weren't there at the time, it had a good story, but like the writing wasn't that great, or bad acting, or like whatever the case is. Like, we need to start making stuff that had potential, but that did not reach that potential. And I don't have one off the top of my head, so I will throw it to you first.
Oof.
What's something that they should remake?
All right. I'm going to dig. I'm putting my thinking cap on real quick. Because I knew what you were going to ask before you asked it. I was like, I really got to think.
And it can be from any era. Like, it could be even something from the 2000s, because we're already in a couple years they're going to be remaking stuff from the 2000s, because that was like 20 years ago.
That's true.
So it can be pretty much from any era.
Man, you're really fucking... You better have your thinking cap on
I'm
right
thinking
now,
right
too.
now.
I'm trying to think of something. I'd like to think of something probably from the 80s or 90s, but... Ooh, man.
It's a real head scratcher.
It is a real... Because, all right, there are things that I wouldn't mind seeing remakes of, but here's the problem. They probably still wouldn't be as good as the original. It's the hardest thing, you know? I mean, I'm going to half-assed answer this question while I try to think of an actual great example. But one thing I would love to come see, or would love to come back, a subgenre in general, is I'd really like werewolf films to make a comeback, like a true comeback, stuff like that. Because I feel like, honestly, they have been out of the spotlight for entirely too long. Like, as like even I don't even need to be like super mainstream. I just want it could be something that's like a Shudder exclusive or things like that, or a few werewolf films, you know, to have a comeback. Because I just feel like when was the last time we saw a good werewolf film?
Most recent good werewolf film that I saw, and this will spoil the film, so if you don't want this spoiled for you, I guess you've had a couple years to watch it. But I thought The Wolf of Snow Hollow was great, but then it's not even a werewolf.
That's been on my list forever to watch. I haven't seen it yet, but I mean,
well, I ruined it for Miles. But
it doesn't.
I mean, either way,
it's. We're both pulling up this our letterboxes, man. We're so on this shit here. But I was trying to pull from my mind. It ain't working.
So what I did was I sorted my letterbox by lowest rated.
That's good.
So
yeah, that's good.
Oh, I've got one. This will piss Miles off.
What?
I think they should remake Halloween Ends. Fuck it. Just do it again. do it the right way.
We'll see.
As an honorable mention, because I see this one on here, they should remake Robot Monster. Do you know what Robot Monster is?
They've been showing that all the time in theaters lately. They showed it in Akron the other month, and they showed it at the Art Institute a couple months later. They showed it I wanted to go see it I missed every single show, and they showed it. Art Institute showed it twice last year because it was like sold out almost or something.
And you can do it campy, because the original was very campy. The problem with the original is like, there's so much meandering. Like, it's just people walking around, the monsters walking around. Like, there's not really, like, a plot to it. Like, you can still do it as, like, a horror comedy today, but make it more entertaining. Because, yeah, the monster in it is iconic, but it's not that great a film, I guess. So that'll be mine.
Okay.
Just because I had it rated fairly low on my letterbox just now.
Man. I'm looking at I'm doing what Buddy did, and I'm like, I don't really want to see any of these remakes. I'm just like, honestly, no. Oh man, I don't know, man. To be honest, I'm having I'm having a hard.
It is quite the head scratcher.
It was a really, really fucking good question. Because I feel like they've just tried to remake so much. You know what I mean? They've just remade so much. The thing is, nowadays, is something we have to address. We probably don't even need to address it because, I mean, anyone who's probably listening to this, quite a few of you, I assume, are big horror fans. The problem is, let's say you get a mid-level 80s horror film, whatever it is. If it was a creature film, if they remake it now, it's going to be too CG heavy. Maybe it'll be half practical, half CG. But I just don't
want to see it.
I just don't foresee. I mean, imagine. Okay, look at this. Well, maybe it's too high a profile, so maybe that wouldn't say. But I was trying to think, like, what if they remade David Cronenberg's The Fly? I keep thinking The Eye. Jessica Alba is haunting me today. The Fly, which is already a remake in itself, but imagine they did that. They probably would have scenes that are fully CG, wouldn't you think? If it's like hanging,
they
from
would
the
have
ceiling,
to be like fully CG.
yeah. I mean, it's like. Maybe they would have some like standing still shots where it's a full practical. They would try. But
see, I feel like something with that, it could go one or two ways. It could be because obviously it's very renowned for its effects. Like it's one of the main appeals of it.
Right.
So they could either do it justice and try to do it as well as they could, or they could do something like when they remade, I guess it was sort of like a requel, when they remade The Thing. Where it was all CG.
But that was supposed to be all practical and Universal demanded.
Supposed to be.
Yeah, I know. I actually got that on Blu-ray recently because I actually like that prequel.
I thought it was decent. I saw it in theaters.
Yeah, I did too.
We did me and Ricky did a thing-a-thon that year where we watched
That's hard.
like the 50s one, then we watched that one, and then we saw the one in theaters, like all in like the same 2 days or whatever.
Remake something. Man, you really got me on. You know what I would really like? I guess that could be a remake. Maybe this would upset some fans. As a fan of the novel of Pet Sematary, they have never had an actual film adaptation that captures a good portion of the book. They get it to the bare bones. Just like the remake they just did, which was kind of honestly like the last like true remake, like maybe a high profile remake, which was like 2019, I think it came out.
It was a couple years
So
ago.
I mean, that was kind of like, that's one thing you can say post pandemic. They haven't remade almost anything. They've done some prequels or sequels, but they haven't actively tried to really
do like a straight up remake of something. Yeah.
So which is weird. We're almost 5 years removed from quite a bit of that.
And that's on high profile. Like I'm sure there's been some indie stuff that's come out, but not like a theatrical thing that people knew about.
I'd like one that gets the treatment that it did. I'm not saying it needs to be 2 fucking parts and 4 hours long, 4.5 hours long, but they could do 1 2 to 2.5 hour long film and like actually get the parts of the book where they're traveling to the cemetery, because that's the thing. You know, in the film adaptations, it's like a hop and a skip away. In the book, they literally talk about how fucking it literally feels like they're on a Lord of the Rings fucking type quest. They've lost they're just walking miles and miles into the woods. There's creatures following them. I'm not gonna spoil too much of the book or anything like that, even though, you know, maybe some of you read it, some of you don't care. I recommend that book, actually, especially if you know, I haven't read a ton of Stephen King. I've read a fair amount, but I recommend that one. But there's all this potential like in that book.
Yeah.
And I was really excited when they were going to remake it, because the filmmakers did a couple other films that were good. And I was like, all right, maybe they're going to, especially because that was coming off of the heels of It. And then It Chapter 2 came out same year, 2019, but I think just a couple months, either a couple months before, a couple months after. I can't remember, but it was fine. But
I liked it, but I mean, it's not anything like the book is. And like Stephen King has been on record saying that, like, I don't know if it's like one of his most personal books, but like he has like a statement about it. Like that's the one that like hits the heaviest in some aspects, and none of the film versions have even come close to kind of adapting it the way he would have liked to see it. So
Yes.
I'm surprised he didn't have them make it like a mini series or something, because like when he hated The Shining, he was like, "Fuck it, I'm doing my own."
Have you
But
watched that 90s Shining?
I have not. I've seen like clips of it, like I've seen like the gist, but I haven't sat down and watched all of it.
I watched the whole thing in 2022, and I was surprised. I thought, I mean, obviously it's not. And The Shining is Stanley Kubrick's Shining is one of my favorite films of all time. It's not that, but I'm also enough of a tolerant fan of anything where it's like, oh, it's just an alternate version, it doesn't bother me. I'll sit down and watch it for what it is.
Yeah.
Also, it's a miniseries. I'm not trying to compare it to Stanley Kubrick's.
Yeah.
I can just safely. It's got a couple of the funniest CG scenes I've ever seen. I mean, really, fucking funny.
I've seen
CG
the hose. I've seen the hedge animals coming to life.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
yeah.
I mean,
there
like,
you go. You've seen it.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. I've seen the parts that people talk about. Yeah.
Well, here. I guess that was your question. I don't know if I answered it as well, but I would like to see some werewolf films more in this decade, and I'd like to see a good adaptation of that. What was the one that you said? Oh, Robot Monster?
Yeah, Robot Monster and Halloween Ends.
Yeah, there you
we'll
go.
stick with
Fuck
that.
off. Next, this is a good question for the year 2024. Do you think that we're actually going to see the Salem's Lot film they've been working on for nearly 3 years?
Here's the thing. Is it done? I think they're done with it.
It's
just on, because studios are doing this thing, and DC is like a big culprit of this, where they just have finished films and they're just not doing anything with it.
It's ridiculous.
Yes, I do think we will see Salem's Lot. Hopefully this year.
Yeah.
But it's not looking great.
It's weird because unless I missed a lot, they have been completely so tight-lipped about every aspect of that film. There's been no stills. There hasn't been a ton of like leaks that it's like, oh, the shoot was a piece of shit. Like, I don't know. Have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything. No, I haven't really seeked it out either, though.
Yeah, but usually it's high profile enough. You would have seen something on a random internet thing.
Yeah, or you would have sent it in the group message or something. Like, we would have come across it somehow. But no, I haven't seen anything.
They haven't done. And it's weird because everyone, I feel like, James Wan is even involved. I feel like everyone involved, they have a track record for getting shit done and getting it out and it still be pretty good.
Yeah, watchable, decent.
I mean, this is Salem's Lot is my favorite Stephen King book. I love the fucking story. I tell anyone to read that book. I love it. One of my favorite vampire stories of all time. That is another one. That's why I kind of segued into this, that I'm like, I love the Tobe Hooper miniseries, but that is one that definitely can be remade in modern times and be fucking excellent. I know it could. I mean, it chapter 2 really gave a lot of hope, and I really thought that there was going to be some sort of full-on King renaissance after that. I don't know if the pandemic kind of put a big kibosh on that. Maybe there were some other ideas, and it just like, I mean, it chapter 2 came out 8 months before the pandemic started. If you really think back, 9 months. So it's like, with all that success, being two of the most successful horror films financially of all time, especially back then, you saw too, there was a ton of like actual merch for it too. I mean, there was there was about 2-3 years where that shit was huge. I mean, merch and stuff and all that. But I really hope I really want to see the Salem's Lot film. I was super open-minded and super stoked when they were going to do it. And I just can't think of any other horror film that I know of that's been like a longer gestation period. And also, like, again, not
that we know of.
Yeah. And I guess I can say in modern times. You know what I mean? Is this going to be this decade's Cabin in the Woods, where it sits on a shelf for fucking 4 or 5 years and it comes out in 2027 or something?
What's the one? What's his name? I can't even think. George Romero. His what was his not the fun house. The
amusement park one.
Yeah,
I
the amusement park. Yeah, it could be the new amusement park. I did see it. Yeah.
Did you like it? I was still on.
It's. I don't know, man, because it's kind of just like a PSA. Like, it's hard to even like think of it as a film. Like, it's very like trippy and stuff, but like, I don't know. I mean, I recommend you watch. I mean, obviously, you being the big Romero fan that you are, I do suggest that you watch it. But like, I don't know. It's not something I can be like, oh yeah, like every horror fan needs to see the amusement park.
Right. I bought the other day. I bought My Soul to Take on Blu-ray. I finally found it. I haven't found it in years. Do you remember that film? It was like Wes Craven's like.
I haven't seen it.
I think it's his last film, maybe before he died. No. Maybe he did Scream 4 after, before, right around the same. I was in college when both those came out. I saw both in theaters, so maybe they were a year apart. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of his last films, but for some reason that been out of print. No whatever. If you want to watch that, I want to watch it. I haven't seen it since in theaters. We should watch it sometime.
We can watch it sometime.
Yeah,
I haven't like heard
sick.
about it. I've never seen it.
But just talking about kind of like completionist type stuff, like Romero and like some of these directors, stuff like that. Well, that was mine. I'm gonna open my Athletic. Run Wild, because we're running wild, brother. I can't even talk today. See, look what sobriety's done to me. But anyways, it's what do you think?
So yours was Will We Ever See Salem's Lot?
Which is I think that's a fucking great question for this year.
I'll give a hot take, I guess. I don't know if you'll agree with this or not. I don't think you will, actually, because I think you like both of these films, but for my money, because these films are both heavily stylized, they both came out a year or two apart, and they have the same main actor in them, but I 100% prefer Color Out of Space to Mandy. 100%. That can be my hot take. Because it's hard not to compare the two.
Yeah. Man, I was very fortunate. Well, we were able to see Color Out of Space 2 months before, literally January 2020, literally right before the fucking pandemic hit. But, wow, that was 4 years ago. Holy fuck.
Saw it at a theater that doesn't even exist anymore.
It's so weird. Yeah, that sucked. Because that before Regal started getting a lot of the independent stuff now post pandemic, that Tower City theater, like I only started going there maybe went there for like a year and a half here and there, but they would get a ton of random independent horror, just like dump anything, whatever. I saw that Haunt film. Remember that film? It got really popular about a year after it came out. The one that Eli Roth produced. The ones at a haunted house, the people go there, and like obviously the haunted house is like ran by like maniacs.
I haven't seen it. No, I may have like read something about it, but I don't remember it.
I remember,
to be honest,
seeing that there, so like that. But I don't know, man. They're like, that'd be a great double feature, obviously. To be fair, I've only seen either of those films once each. So it's both in theaters. So it's super hard to be like, because really, honestly, like, I'm not going to say I love both of them, but I like both of them a lot. Like, I like what they do, what they show. I mean, I don't know, man.
I just know everyone always has Mandy ranked higher, and I was like, I don't know, I thought Color Out of Space was better.
Color Out of Space might be a better... I don't know. Mandy's a pretty decently made film, but... Oh, man, I don't know. It's not that serious a question.
Yeah,
I'm like sitting here like, oh my god, my life's like crumbling in front. I don't know. I can't, honestly, I'm just going to give you a bullshit answer that I can't pick there because I like both of them. I think it'd just be a given day thing because I think they're just different enough. Like if I wanted something goopy and funky and shit, I obviously like Color Out of Space. And if I wanted something that's like a little bit more brooding and like chaotic, even though Color Out of Space is chaotic too, but like I'd probably go with Mandy.
It's definitely much more serious.
Yes.
And brooding,
I mean, Mandy's definitely like a pretty brutal, but also like it's not like even the scenes in the beginning that are supposed to be like, I don't want to say happy, but like whatever. There's still kind of like a sense of like dread or unhappiness or like something's about to happen. Like there's no like moments in the film that are like things are okay. Does that make sense? So I don't know. You got to be, I think, in the right mood for that, or be the right kind of person. For shits and giggles, I'll go with Mandy. I'll pick
All
Mandy
right, yeah, all right.
for shits and giggles. But it's
Just so we can disagree for once on
yes.
this podcast.
Oh, we already disagreed about Halloween Ends, bro. And technically, I guess Exorcist Believer, but
yeah. You're up for your fifth.
My fifth. Are we doing 5 then? Is that
Yeah,
what
we'll do 5. Yeah.
Man, I better make it a fucking good one. Let me think about this for a sec. Why don't you tell the lovely people on the internet what we're looking at right now?
So, whenever we do these podcasts, we talk about it sometimes, sometimes we don't talk about it, but I always like to put on some kind of like ambiance, just to get us into the right headspace. So right now on YouTube, I have queued up a Friday the 13th ambiance, and it's just called Camp Crystal Lake Horror, and it's an hour of the lake and some fog and a very poorly photoshopped Welcome to Crystal Lake sign where the coloring doesn't match anything else in the image.
To be fair, I kind of like the sign, but it's just, oh wow, we still have oh wow.
I just rewound it a little bit because it was actually about to be over in about 30 seconds. So I rewound it so we can have it going for while we wrap
the fog really adds it. You know, I was at Camp Crystal Lake in 2023. This is exactly what it looks like. I want people to know that. 100%. This is photo accurate. I was there. You could just Photoshop me in somewhere back by that shed, you know.
I might use the picture of this for our thumbnail, just so everyone kind of knows what we're looking at.
Exactly.
I might use this. I don't know. If not, I'll make it something wildly different, so then they're like, oh, we'll have to find this on ourselves. But if you see some cabins in the Welcome to Crystal Lake, just know we've been looking at this for the past hour. Miles's final horror
I almost thought of a question that was similar to the final question we had on our apparently first and only Horror Thought podcast.
We did one that was similar to this. It wasn't like Horror Thoughts. It was something different. I don't know. Man, you really, I don't know why it's because we're looking at the ambiance of the Camp Crystal Lake right now.
Let me think right here. So, New Line apparently after they finish the Conjuring series is gonna do Nightmare on Elm Street, a project. They've said it for years. I think they have that new still out, the Conjuring still, that this one that coming out is like the end all be all one. The last Conjuring was fine, but it was very mediocre. I think they've kind of
Jared's exact words were, "It's mid, Miles, you'll love it."
I don't. Pretty much anything that Jared says about me is pretty much wrong. Like, I just want everyone to know. I mean, anytime he says stuff, I'm just like, I don't know where. I don't know. He's living in a fucking fantasy land, I guess. I don't know. It's all that COVID did. Having COVID 8 times, whatever it did to his fucking brain. But I was gonna word this a couple different ways. Are you excited? Would you be excited for a new Nightmare on Elm Street? And do you think they should replace Robert Englund, or what do you think?
Here's what I think they should do, because I had this written down as like a subplot for either this episode or a different episode. I think, in my ideal world, you would do one more with Robert Englund.
Okay.
Maybe a passing of the torch kind of scenario. I think you need to do Freddy versus Jason 2. Get Kane Hodder back. Robert Englund back. Just one last hoorah. Blow it off. And then if you guys want to do a remake, do something different than the remake you did before. Like, you can still make it Freddy Krueger. You can have... The whole thing could be him leading up to how he becomes Freddy Krueger, but you can't just redo the first film again.
Yeah.
But in my ideal world, you would have that big blow off. Just have the two of them come back, one final thing, and then if you want to remake it again after that, go for it.
If they're gonna do In my opinion, I like that though. Freddy vs. Jason 2 would be fucking awesome. There are a few different ways to go about it. Like, it just in my whatever. Everything you're saying, though, I'm like, yeah, I could see that. I can agree with that for sure. There's no... But, like, if I was just fantasy booking. We're fantasy booking.
Yeah, we're fantasy booking.
If they're going to have Robert Englund back for one film, I could see them passing the torch. I don't know if I trust a modern writer and a narrative to do a good enough job to do that. Even though we just talked about how horror it's been going pretty strong the past few years, stuff like that. I think that I don't know. Maybe I just don't have enough faith with I guess the classic characters, but I feel like if it's just a one film, they're gonna maybe like muddy it up. Like it's not gonna work. They're not gonna give it enough time, or they're gonna like put it way at the end or the beginning. It's just not gonna work. I mean, that could work, but I'm saying I just don't think it has. I don't have enough faith in the fact, like modern writing, that they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
I could either see if they just want to do one, have like a true final nightmare, just retire the fucking character, like just one and done, make their $200 million or whatever the fuck they're gonna do, but we know they're probably not gonna do that ever. Even though, I mean, I guess Freddy Krueger has been the one that's, I guess, had the least amount of films of any of them. They kind of have left him alone. I mean, it's been 14 years since the remake,
right?
Which is wild. That's actually really wild that they've left it that alone that long. If they were gonna do some sort of trilogy thing, because I know that they're really
That's the
into
big
the
thing
trilogies,
right now. Yeah.
do one where he's back and do maybe, I don't know, I don't even care what it is, just something decent. The second one, do Freddy versus Jason 2. Like, make it just like, because that way that, you know, you can kind of bring in, you know, whatever. Almost like you end the first one, Jason shows up in the post credits or right at the end, and then it's just boom, it cuts off. The anticipation would be
insane,
through the fucking roof. And then, I mean, have him escape or have him fucking beat Jason. The thing with Jason is he could fucking cut him into a million pieces or break his shit up and him fall in the Crystal Lake or wherever the fuck, and either that be done or like that connected storyline be done, or if he just, you know, buried him underwater, he can come back and another fucking you know, just matter. Whatever one. It's not, you know, and then do a final nightmare, like whatever, and just cap that off. And then if they want in 15 years to fucking start over,
again,
because at that point, nostalgia, regardless of how well the series, you know, is acclaimed by future generations, our generation, you know, people getting at that point will be getting their 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, at that point so much time will have passed that I think people would be kind of open
to something different.
For something different. I think as long as England's alive, it's going to be a hard sell. Otherwise, I don't know. None of those ideas that I just said really sounded even good to me, but they could work. I mean, I think if they're gonna do a trilogy, though, I don't think they need to have like pure just nightmare films.
No, you gotta do something different. Yeah, I agree. My final thought. I don't know. What do you got to plug while I'm thinking here? What do you got to
plug?
Yeah.
Well, you and I have talked about some last year that we do have a couple episodes that we're like planning on doing throughout the year. Last year, I revisited a bunch of the series that we have ranked in the past. I think it's good every, you know, few years. Not good. I mean, just as like a horror nerd, I'll call myself that. I think it's safe to say. You could probably call yourself the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, we're not going to use it as a bad term, but you know, it's a good idea to go back and revisit some of them, especially like most of the ones I watched last year were Halloween, like the Halloween series.
Yeah.
And when we did that podcast, we did not revisit, which we talked about. We did not revisit the series. We did it based on memory alone. I definitely would re-rank mine a bit, but I still can't really get behind H2O or Resurrection, man. I mean, I'll throw that out there. Maybe that's a hot take on the podcast, but I've tried so hard to like because so many. I mean, not Resurrection, obviously, even though Resurrection has quite a few fans, believe it or not, you know. But I think you agree. I think based on your Letterboxd, you aren't really a big fan of either H2O or Resurrection either.
I think when I did the original ranking, Resurrection was down towards the bottom and H2O was pretty middle of the road. But at that time we only had Halloween 2018. Kills and Ends weren't out yet. So I mean, like, it would be shaken up a little bit if we do re-rank them, which we will be re-ranking them eventually.
Okay.
But I don't know. You might be a little shocked where Halloween Kills would come in my ranking. I don't know.
I've watched Kills 2 or 3 times now, and it's when I look at the way that he talked about it, like when he did an interview, I think either before, I don't know if it was after, I can't remember. But he talked about, he's like, oh, I wanted to make a Michael Myers exploitation flick. And I was like, oh, well, then, you know, he did exactly what, I mean, pretty much exactly what he was going for. So I'm like, oh, if he did that intended in mind, I'm fine with it. You know, like it's,
yeah.
I mean, it has some great scenes and kills.
I can give my last hot take.
All right, go ahead. All right.
If I were to pop on any of the David Gordon Green films, it would be Halloween Kills. If there's one that's like, all right, what do I feel?
Right.
Which one of these do you feel like watching? 9 times out of 10, I would probably pick Kills of what to watch.
That's cool.
And not to like spoil like a ranking or anything. I think it's not bogged down with having to remake Halloween or do a soft reboot of Halloween.
That's true.
Like they did in 2018. They were able to do some of that exploitation stuff you're talking about. I think the horror comedy elements in it, whether intentional or not, are great. There's a lot that I do not think was intentional.
No.
But the stuff that is, I do think is good. I mean, the kill with the gun in the door is all-time legendary Michael Myers.
It's legendary. Yeah.
Michael Myers moment. So that would be my hot take. If I won't say it's the best out of the 3, but if you were to ask, like, hey, like, which Halloween film out of the newer ones do you want to pop on right now? It would have to be Kills.
Okay.
It would have to be Kills.
I've rewatched. I don't know. It's weird. I've rewatched that entire trilogy now. For some reason, even though I know that the level of the films are questionable, some of them in certain parts. For some reason, I don't know. I really like the trilogy, the whole thing. The only thing is, I will say, and whatever. I think I've talked about another thing, but like the more I've rewatched, I've seen Halloween 2018 the most, obviously. I've seen that 4 or 5 times now, believe it or not, which is crazy. Yeah. I think that's one of the most modern, like of more modern horror films. I don't think I've watched one as many times as that, which is weird to say.
Yeah.
But I think it's because I was kept ramping up for like Kills and
the
Ends
new one's
and
coming
stuff like
out,
that.
and it's like, oh, I haven't seen it yet. Oh, well, if you want to go, you need to see this. And,
So, I see more now stuff that I don't like in 2018. I still say, and I've said on multiple ones, I know I keep repeating myself, but I think if you took those 3 films, mixed up all the puzzle pieces and rearranged where each of the things go, I think you could have had a fucking actual super banger ass trilogy front to back.
Hey man, if you would have introduced that dude, whatever his name is, the Cunningham or whatever his name is, if he would have been in the first film and you build up to it, I don't think I would have disliked Ends as much as I did.
I know.
It's just, it was like out of like absolutely nowhere.
I kind of feel that Ends was the film they originally wanted to start and make with, and the studios were like, absolutely not. I really feel when I look, because I'm like, all of 28, the problem with 2018 is that, like, and I've said it on multiple things with you, it basically blows his load for the trilogy right off the bat with the fucking crazy trapped house all the stuff leading up to it. I remember leaving there like, and then they're going to do 2 more, and it's like, obviously I'm open-minded, like, sure, they could do anything, but at the same time, like, holy fuck, how do you follow that up? Like, I'm like, it just feels like they they blew their load, and then they're like, well, how do we get back around to whatever? Part of me thinks that they were just like, I still think that, ends regardless of what I respect how anyone feels. I don't know. I really connected with it. I don't mind having a hot take with that. I've seen it a couple times now. I still really like it, but I can also, like I talked about The Shining and The Shining miniseries, I can disconnect myself from like just watching something for whatever that is. I don't mind seeing another version of Michael Myers. That's basically like to me, that's just their Halloween 3. And I feel like that's all they tried to do. I mean, regardless, we don't have to go into a huge thing because I know you don't like it. I respect it. I don't think that film, though, even if you don't like it, is as bad as like people make it out to be. Same with Exorcist Believer. I mean, I'd say Exorcist Believer is a worse film than Halloween Ends, but I feel like people didn't get what they want out of it. But I truly, after the original 2018, I just don't think they were ever going to be able to please even the vast majority because they just knocked it out of the, as far as ending. There's things I don't like there's things I see now I'm like, oh, this doesn't make sense, or I don't like this, if I'm really watching it, like going back now on like a fourth or fifth rewatch. But like that whole end sequence, they just gave it their all, and it's just like, well, they just could never whatever. But I want to rewatch. I actually got Kills and Ends on Blu-ray like around Halloween, and I've been wanting to go back because Kills I've seen twice, 3 times, twice. Maybe I have seen everything. I've seen Ends twice. Kills twice. Maybe Kills is 2 or 3 times. But anyways, but I don't know why I've been going back to that trilogy. I think it kind of maybe because it's the only slasher big one that's like kind of been reintroduced in modern times, and it's kind of
had a trilogy. Like the other ones are just kind of like one and done.
Yeah, so it's kind of like maybe sparked just like, I don't know, just sparked something. I'm just like, oh, I like this. I'm glad he's back. It's not. Yeah. But you also look at the Halloween ones. We talked about it all those years ago. It's almost like a choose your own adventure. You can do this, you can do that. Like it's not like they had like let's even say the Nightmare on Elm Street continuity where it's like this, and then all of a sudden they just had these batshit like 2 remakes or prequels, requels, whatever. But I did go back and rewatch both Rob Zombie ones, and the original remake is worse than I remember.
But I'm telling you that.
I know. Well,
I'm telling you that.
It sucked too because I thought I had watched the unrated version before, and I guess I didn't. And I watched the unrated version, and there's a completely pointless rape scene in the middle. Like Michael Myers doesn't do it. Have you seen the unrated version?
I can't recall. It's been so long since I've seen the Rob Zombie one. Because again, we didn't watch them when we re-ranked them.
Yeah.
And I haven't gone back and watched it since then. So it's been at least like a decade, I would say.
There's just a weird, pointless, like super nasty, and like the dialogue going up to it before, like super nasty rape scene in the middle and just rape sequence. And it just like, I'm just like, thank God that wasn't in the original one. You know what I mean? Like, I know it couldn't have been even at the time, right. But it just felt like just so nasty for the sake of being nasty. Did nothing for the story, did nothing for whatever, but like, it was just so like audibly and visually jarring that I was just like, wow, I don't know if I can ever watch this version again. I guess because I haven't seen, to be honest, thank God we've gotten a little bit past like the extreme acts for the sake of extreme acts in horror. It's kind of like
just for the shock value.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
We're done. That trend's pretty much phased out. I mean, you have Terrifier 2, but that's all doing for the sake of the story. I mean, I guess, but
I don't think though. Unless I can't remember, I've only seen Terrifier 2 once, but there's no rape.
No, there's none of that.
Yeah, like I don't see him going that direction at all. Like, but I mean, this was pretty. I liked Halloween 2007 less. I kept Halloween 2 kind of where it was because I watched the unrated like director's cut of that, which I'm not sure if I've seen either. I kept thinking I did, but like where it's kind of like fleshes things out more. I really like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, except for now it's way more jarring, like to have like the white pony and like her and stuff. If they would remove those sequences and leave the other aspects of the director's cut in, I think it could be a pretty damn good Michael Myers film. But again, all these ones that have been, let's say, post Resurrection, they've just had too many cooks in the kitchen. They haven't had the right people either writing the stories or editing them or this or that. It's just like, on a final note on this, are you remotely, I guess, a final horror thought? We're going to bonus round, guys.
Bonus round.
Are you excited at all that they're already going to do a new Halloween thing with the TV series?
No, because I don't give a shit about TV series to begin with.
Yeah, well, there you go, kids. You got it. You heard it first.
Don't give a shit about a TV series. This isn't that. You need the big time, theatrical, big time. That's why I'm not going to watch the fucking Crystal Lake show.
Oh, I'm going to see it. But anyways, the only thing is, though, I feel like the way Jason Voorhees works, as we're looking at a beautiful backdrop of Camp Crystal Lake, like we mentioned, I feel like Jason Voorhees, even if you were just to do a random, like, Tales from Crystal Lake, like if they were doing it different, like, I feel like there's more potential in that, like people, let's say, solving the murders or doing that, stuff like that, than like Michael Myers, where it's like once a year he doesn't, like,
he's just hanging out.
He's just hanging out. Yeah, and also that, like they've kind of made Jason, even though he doesn't speak, like they give the head turns, they give little, like, I mean, I guess Michael Myers has that too. For some reason, I feel like I could see Jason translating better to that, where like I just don't see Michael Myers, like a 6 to 8 episode TV series, like working well if he's in every single episode.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
I don't know. I think that, look at the fondness. We've talked about Nightmare on Elm Street, maybe coincidentally, 4 or 5 times on this podcast. Like, there's been time to let things simmer. Like, 14 years since the last fucking thing. Same with Friday the 13th. We're not even 2 full years removed from the last Halloween property, however anyone feels about it or not. Like, just let it go for a few years. Just give it like just 5 years.
A little bit
just
more
give
time.
it a little time. But
yeah.
All right, those were all my tangents and spiels. You got anything?
No, I think that wraps it up for this time. So, random horror thoughts, part 2 or 3 or whatever it is. We'll have to do some more of these. It's nice having the more laid back episodes. Here's a final question for you, because we've alluded to re-ranking these series before. I think I've also alluded to you. I would love to do. I don't know how the hell we'd pull this off. It'd be quite the undertaking. But ranking them for the first time. Every VHS segment, I think, would be very interesting.
Oh, that would be interesting.
But what I was gonna say, when we're redoing the Halloween list, like, are we doing? We're going to have to decide if we're watching it unrated. I'm curious, what are we doing when it comes to the producer's cut scenario? Are we going to have to put both of them in the list?
I have the producer's cut, because I have it on Blu-ray. Yeah, I have it too. I actually got it last Halloween as well from a friend. Shout out John Knoll, great guy. I don't know, man. That'd be up to you.
We'll have to figure it out.
To be fair, I don't know if the copies I have of Halloween, like 2007, like the Rob Zombies, I don't even know if they had the theatrical cut. Like, I think they might just be 2 unrated Blu-rays, and that's it.
Oh, really?
I don't. Maybe part 2 has the option for some reason. Maybe I saw that. I don't. Yeah. I really don't know. I'd have to go back. To be fair, I probably will fast forward through the rape scene.
Understandably so.
I just don't need to see that. I don't know. I like Last House on the Left, the original, and I actually thought that remake was well enough but I mean, I don't know. I fuck with the original I Spit in Your Grave a little bit, but there's just certain things. It's like, you watch them once or twice. It's not. I don't know. Just like cannibal films for me, they just don't. Especially the Italian ones with like real fucking animal torture. Like, it's not for me.
But anyway, we'll have to come up with some sort of not like a rubric, but we need to make sure we're watching the same versions of these, I guess. I don't know.
We have to watch every fucking cut of 20 your top 20 Halloween ranking.
We're also ranking the TV cut of the original Halloween. That'll be in there.
We do have to add Season of the Witch, though.
We can add Season of the Witch.
You gotta throw it in there, brother.
All right.
All right. He gave me that one, guys. I think for myself, for Midnight Miles,
You're not going to be impressed with where I put it, but okay.
Oh God. Well, hey, another reason for me to sign off. So, thank you for having me on in the new year. Hopefully, we'll get to do a few more of these this year.
That's about it for this time, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. It was a great way to kind of, just get into the swing of recording podcasts again. A nice laid-back episode for you guys. So, without further ado, I'm going to see you guys back with another episode of the show coming at you very, very soon. But if you haven't already, you got to make sure that you're subscribing to my YouTube channel. Subscribe over on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever you're getting the show, make sure you're subscribing to the show and leaving me a rating and a review. And with that, I will see you guys back for another episode of Buddy's House of Horror coming at you very, very soon. So with that, just take care and stay spooky.